Dear beautiful people, today I would like to offer you some perspective. Considering our perspectives, contemplating about them is of great importance, because the way we generate emotion is based on our belief system. You could also say your belief system is a thought matrix. And through your beliefs, you filter every type of event that you ever experience. Now, your beliefs are being built out of your memory that you have collected since you're a little kid. And based on your memory, you are deciding if your current experience is a crisis or an opportunity. And I want to tell you that we live in amazing times, because now something is happening that the planet dearly needs. Millions of people are forced to face themselves. They cannot distract themselves by going to the office. They cannot go back into the day-to-day structure that they're comfortable with. And now they're sitting at home and need to face their own emotions, their thought systems that they usually can ignore by constantly getting input. In this moment, we have a chance as a species collectively to become more aware. Because if you cannot distract yourself, you become aware. This is why many avoid meditation and avoid the silence, because within the silence you suddenly become aware of the state of your conditioning. You suddenly, in the silence, notice your negative belief systems. You notice the emotional trauma that is stored up in your body. This is why we, in that sense, live in a society that loves to consume, because consuming is nothing but compensation. Is a way of regulating your emotions. But when you do not have a choice to compensate any longer, you need to face those emotions and those negative beliefs. So what usually the mystic does as his own free will choice, the shadow work, it's the metaphorical going into the cave or sitting on a mountain or walking into the desert. It is basically the willingness of the mystic to face the ego. But now collectively we are forced to face the ego because of a lack of distraction. And then we might contemplate and reflect, are we really living the life that we want to live? Are we really authentically expressing ourselves in the world? Now, what we experience as negative emotion, that is a very profound discovery, is actually shadow expression. And on this channel I've sometimes spoken about the shadow, and I've basically said the shadow is every part of your being that the ego rejects, and the ego being the conditioned identity coming out of the collective belief system. Now, the shadow only expresses itself as negative emotion if the freedom that the soul seeks is denied by the ego. So if we're angry at someone, for example, we're only angry at someone because we're not speaking our authentic self to that being, so we're not claiming our freedom and secretly blaming someone else for not speaking out what is our need, what is our desire, where do we want to be, where do we want to go. Because of ego restrictions that we don't want to accept, we think someone else is limiting our freedom. And this is also the reason why many now focus on conspiracy theories. Because to focus on conspiracy theories comes from a mindset of victimhood. I'm not saying that conspiracies don't happen, and I'm not saying to not be aware of it, but how much power does those conspiracies actually have in your day-to-day life? When you wake up in the morning, when the sun is coming through your window, what is actually dominating your life? Is your thought system that you identify with, that focuses on conspiracies and that focuses on ideas of powerlessness, but you're perfectly in power, because every day you can wake up and make a different decision. And now in something that people have labeled a crisis, that's very interesting, because a crisis of the identity and a crisis of the ego is always a chance at awakening. Now we have a collective chance at awakening by, instead of responding with panic, responding with lower intelligence, responding with biological intelligence, yeah, that means instinct, we can choose to respond with meditation, contemplation, creativity. So in this process where the old structures are breaking down, our egos, who are used to a certain idea of normality, resist the change, but the breaking down of the structures is something that most of us have deeply desired. Because the old world needs to break down for a new world to be born. But this doesn't only happen politically or collectively, that happens individually. That means your personality needs to break down as well. Because your personality is nothing but the accumulation of memory. And this belief system, this structure in your head needs to also break down for the new world to be born. And now you're forced to reflect. You're forced to contemplate. You're forced to sit within silence without distraction. This is exactly what a Zen monk does for 10 years. Get rid of all distractions. Face oneself without any excuse, without any way of getting away from oneself. And an utterly honest, fearless investigation happens of what energies am I carrying? What energies am I radiating? What situations do I attract because I'm radiating those energies? And now we're being forced into responsibility. Again, I'm not saying conspiracies are not happening, but to play the game of powerlessness and to wait for something in politics to change instead of creating the new world is the confusion of the ego. Instead of focusing on the rejection of the old world, it is very important to focus on building the new. So you're being asked to build the new. You're being asked to love, to be compassionate, to be creative, to be your authentic selves. And in order to be your authentic self, you need to face your shadow right now. You need to face your fears, your angers, your frustrations, and sit with them in silence. The politics are only a reflection of the collective state in humanity. If every individual would choose transformation, would be willing to face their shadow right now, then our politics would look completely different, because someone who faces their own shadow is willing to take responsibility for oneself. If I take responsibility for myself, I don't delegate the power of making choices to someone else. So I do not empower institutions who don't necessarily serve humanity. Instead, I empower institutions who empower people. In that sense, we need to build our own institutions, our own structures. But before we can do that, the old world within ourselves needs to die. And the old world exists as a belief system, and what you see outside, the physical representation, the structures, the bureaucracy, the policies, and so on, are just a representation of the collective belief systems. Now, a mystic is not busy blaming. A mystic is not busy blaming elites or politicians or whatever, because a mystic knows through facing oneself that the deep work, the alchemical work, is done within. And if the work is done within, the outside will fall into place. And there is an understanding that we are, in that sense, powerful beings, but not in terms of control, right? Because those who seek power in order to control, they're actually in a state of fear. Well, why would I need to control someone? Only if I believe that I cannot be in a state of abundance by myself. So then we seek to control others to draw their energy. This is already a flawed system that in that sense has a predatory, parasitical attitude. Now it is about self-sufficiency. That means to learn to regulate one's own emotions, and not by suppressing them, not by pushing them away, but through accepting them, therefore transmuting them. When you transmute your emotions, and when you change the rigid belief system that you have been programmed with since being a child. A new world will be born out of you because your actions will change. And now, in this time where we sit at home, there's a chance for some to, let's say, create their own business, to become self-employed, to start working over social media, to start painting, making music, writing books, whatever. This is a moment of where there is space created for change, and since humanity has had the desire for change, we need an outside manifestation to assist that in that change, and suddenly a virus occurs. To force the collective shadow work that as of yet only very few beings have chosen to do, namely mystics, psychologists, psychotherapists and so on, who have had a profound understanding, who are doing the shadow work themselves in order to manifest a different life experience, but not only because of service to self, but because of service to all selves. That means everyone. So here's a choice for you that I will offer. In this time, you can focus on your worries, you can focus on your fears, you can focus on what you try to avoid. Or you can focus on the life that you would like to create. What creative possibilities are there right now? In what way can you consciously respond to this situation, first of all by transmuting your own traumas, so you become the loving, caring being that you would like to see in everyone else? And what talents do you have that are uniquely an expression of your soul, that can serve humanity in the years to come? Now is the time to go deep, to know yourself thoroughly, so the new world can be born out of you. Because the individual is the collective is the individual. Make no mistake about that. Contemplate about that, my friends. Be well.